back with another strategy and content video. So this week we are going to be focusing on the 5 elements of literature. And you know that the first element, or the 5 elements of short stories, I should say, because there's lots of elements to literature. But part of them are the 5 things you need when you're reading and writing. So the first one we're going to talk about is plot. And basically it's a way of organizing stories. That's like your biggest understanding that you need to comprehend. And your objectives, you're going to be able to develop clear communication from this, and you're going to be able to critically consume text and engage with others about that text. So basically learning plot will help you to have smarter conversations, and you'll have a common language to refer to when you're talking about different books. Some questions that you're going to think about is how can plot help us to organize a story? How do readers utilize plot to comprehend a story? What would happen if we took out plot from a short story? And why is plot important for daily communication? So we got to start off with a basic plot structure. You're used to beginning, middle, and end in order to sum up a story. Well, it goes a little bit deeper because of the different components in a story, especially at your level now. Things are getting a little bit more complex, more twists and turns, as I like to say. So instead of beginning, we're going to say exposition. And you should remember from last week that we talked about exposition really focusing in on the character and the setting development. The author does that so that the reader gets like a sense of mood. You know, if it's a very scary book, you're going to start off with like a mystery tone. If it's a love story, you're going to start probably in a nostalgic tone. You know, describing everything about the character is going to help make this book stronger so that when the character does change in the rising action and the climax, the reader can make a connection and be like, wait, that's different than what I know this character to be like. So now moving up into the rising action, the author tries to set up different situations so that characters are changing and they're reacting to different situations in the book, and that's when the rising action occurs, when the different kind of like conflicts start to develop and just things get a little bit more complicated for our characters. Also, you'll notice that the scenes start to change, like settings in general. That's going to be a rising action moment too. And then we go to the climax. That's the most intense part of the story. It's the turning point. It's when the character makes a change and like discovers the catalyst for that change or the reason for changing. And it's just such an important part of the book. It's how we lead down into the actions coming after it and into the resolution. So falling action, obviously that's when the movie or the book starts to wind down and you start to realize, okay, the character is now taking steps to resolve whatever big problem, whatever change they needed to make, they start making in this falling action. And then the resolution is just that it solves the problem that was happening. Some problems are hard to discover. That's why we'll study conflict more specifically. But once you understand how to identify a conflict, you'll be able to make sure and understand all of a plot structure of the story. So again, just to reiterate, exposition is the start, rising action is a series of conflicts and crisis in the story that lead to the climax. Climax is the turning point, the most intense moment, either mentally or with action. And falling action is all of the action which follows the climax. The resolution is the conclusion, tying all threads together. This is where, you know, the hero becomes triumphant, Batman saves the damsel in distress, the happy couple lives happily ever after, Cinderella finds her Prince Charming. You get the gist. It's the end of the story. There is no more. And if it's in a series, it's going to be the end of that part of the story. So like in Percy Jackson, we know that there are 3 books in that series, and each book has a different ending to that specific quest or journey that they went on. So I like to connect the plot structure to a roller coaster. Obviously, the exposition is, you know, the rules when you're getting on the roller coaster, and then you start going, and it's really slow as you rise up, and it gets really, really intense, and you're like freaking out when you get to the top, and then you're noticing like, oh my gosh, we're about to go down, and that's kind of like the biggest turning point right there, and then it all goes downhill, and it's super fast and easy, and then you get off, and you're like, oh wait, let's do that again. So that's how a story goes in my mind. I love using the roller coaster analogy. I hope this helps you connect with it as well. And so as you move on through this week, practicing identifying plot through your books and the different components of plot, I want you to think about how can plot be effective for communicators in our written and verbal conversations and stories. And then something else that we are going to be working on, you're going to be reading all of these stories. You've already read Tanaika. You're going to read it again so that you can analyze the plot structure of that story. And you're going to read the other short stories this week too. We're going to compare the stories and figure out which one had the most organized format of plot, because plot is our focus this week. If you have any questions, please write them down or Edmodo them to me. You know you can always reach me by email or Edmodo or live in class, and we'll do more of the purposeful practice in class. So this part right here, that's the purposeful practice, and we are good to go. Okay, have a good one. See you in class.